Okay, I'm talking to Michael McCabe here. It's Andrew Cardozo. And I'm talking to Michael who worked with Prime Minister Pearson for the Liberal Party, and then worked for Mitchell Sharp in the Pearson government. Michael, thanks for doing this. I want to take you through some of those times and just get your recollections. Let me start with the time when you were at the party office.
Yes.
Tell me what you were doing and Pearson's style.
Yeah, I was with the party office for in effect between the 62 and 63 elections, and I was the national communications director of the party, and so met often with Mr. Pearson, with Dick O'Hagan and Keith Davey. We would often see him about party matters and election matters, and then when I was with Mitchell Sharp following that, I was often with Mitchell Sharp with the Prime Minister. But my sense of him was, interestingly, a bit different from what one saw in the world. He was on the outside a soft person, but inside he was a very tough guy, but you would go into his office, for instance, and he was jolly, happy. Once I walked in and he was sitting with his feet up in the desk drawer watching the Expos play baseball, and then we went on and had the meeting with him continuing to watch the Expos.
He was a big baseball fan, wasn't he?
He was huge, yes, particularly an Expos fan, but because they were the only Canadian team at the time, and in the national in the top leagues. But anyways, but in any discussion you had with him, and I discovered this not just with me and the people I went in with, but others too. You left the office feeling that he had heard you, and perhaps he'd agreed with you. But in fact, you learned that he didn't agree with you. Everybody left the office feeling that he listened and agreed to them. And it was his style. He was never a good sort of public orator. I mean, his voice was too high, and he had a lisp and so on. But he was someone who had a clear sense of what he wanted to do, and he got people around him to help him do it. But his style of interaction was never one where he was dictating, "This is what I want." He was almost throwing the problems out there in the midst of chaos and so on, and saying, "Okay, let's all figure this out together," but always looking for the opportune moment when he could, in effect, say, "Okay, this is what we want to do, and let's pursue that." And I think it came from his time as a diplomat, that's the way he did it in diplomacy. It was recognizing that out of chaos you can find an answer, but if you charge in with what you want, you're going to have a whole lot of opposition which will prevent getting what you want.
So do you think he had a clear position to start with and was just waiting for it to come? Or was he really open-minded and looking for the best?
I think I don't think he had a clear position. For instance, with the flag, he put forward a design, but he didn't have a particular flag in mind. He just wanted a new national flag to come out of the discussion, and it didn't matter that it wasn't his initial proposal. And with things like Medicare, he didn't have any view on the structure of it, how it might operate, or how it might be administered, or so on. That came out of the discussion, so that he had general ideas as to where he wanted to go, and he was quite firm about it had to be Medicare, it had to be a flag, but he was prepared to take on board the views of others and make sure that out of the discussion came something that could find broad agreement.
And in that cabinet and the initial group that you would have worked with when he was in opposition, there were people from the right and the left of the Liberal Party,
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, my boss in those days, Mitchell Sharp, was a on the right-hand side of it, and someone like someone like Walter Gordon was on the left, and
Right.
but and then Judy LaMarche, for instance, was on the left. But you had ministers from the west, Art Lang from BC, and Harry Hayes from Alberta, and these people were right-wingers. But that was the nature of the party in those days. It was, as they call, a big tent.
Right. Right.
Which meant that this was part of the nature of the party, so that you composed differences in the party before you. But there were often great battles within the party.
And there was chaos too, was it?
Well, chaos in part caused by the fact that there was a minority government, and in part caused by the fact that there were at various points scandals, and Walter Gordon had problems. Judy LaMarche was forever having problems, and so that there was that. But and his, I don't know if it was chaos so much as his style of government, which just said, let the whole discussion continue, and if there's problems that arise, let them emerge, and let's see when is the right moment to say, okay, we can solve this problem.
Right. Okay, let me move on to the time when you, after the government came into office in 1963, you moved to the office of Mitchell Sharp.
Yes.
Tell me about Pearson's style of cabinet governance.
Yeah, it was very different from other governments that I've experienced, and the Chrétien government, although he was closest to Pearson's government that I've seen, but the the Trudeau government, because he relied upon his ministers. Yeah, I mean, they didn't get letters which said, here's what I want you to accomplish, but he picked good people and strong people, and he relied upon. There wasn't any kind of central guidance from the Prime Minister's office for these people. In part it came from the nature of the party, of the senior people in the party, because a lot of them had worked together. The Mitchell Sharps and Bud Drury's and Jack Pickersgills and so on, and Alan McCabe. They'd worked together in the senior levels of the public service, so they were. And Pierson, he selected people who were strong, and he let them run their departments.
So did the PMO still play a coordinating role?
A little, in the sense that they were, they met cabinet meetings. There were no cabinet committees in those days. Cabinet met.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Cabinet met twice a week, and would go on from the end of the question period, 2 o'clock or something like that, to through till 8 o'clock at night, and they hashed over everything. But so that, and direction came out of that, but there wasn't a strong sort of PMO that in effect directed ministers. I mean, Tom Kent, who had been editor of the Winnipeg Free Press and before that of the Manchester Guardian, Tom was the kind of the philosopher of the party and the policy director of the party, and party, and he certainly played some role in that, as did Alan McCacken, who had been with Mr. Pierson before he became a minister, and also played a policy role. But there wasn't the kind of direction we hear of now.
Yeah. So who were the key people then around Pierson? There was Tom Kent was the policy guy.
Tom Kent was the guy that wrote the policy for the party. Effectively. Now, there were a lot of input to that, obviously. But Alan McCacken was another, and Alan came out of this tough background in Cape Breton, and so he brought that to the center, but so there were those two of them. But then Walter Gordon was a key player, not just in the organizing of the election and the recruiting of candidates. Walter played a key part in policy, and then there were some Dick O'Hagan and Keith Davey, Dick as the press secretary to the Prime Minister, and Keith Davey as head of the party. They were in play all the time as on party matters, on election, on political matters. They were in play all the time, and that was the main group around Pierson.
Interesting.